I think we're still waiting for a few people from the Richmond team to get here. See, I see Ari and Jonathan here. Do we know whether or not Val's going to be joining us today by any chance?
Oh, sorry, I should have clarified. No, Bao won't be joining. Is he the only person you're waiting on?
I believe Maria as well. Will she be joining us?
So Maria, we can get started because I think Maria did accept, but because her clinical duties comes first, so she might be doing a consult.
Yep, that's totally fine. We did have some information about future state for her workflow. So like
Yeah.
from the generalist team. So if she joins us, yeah, she's welcome to join at any time really. And they will be recorded. So we can actually just give her the recording and she can review.
Perfect. And then at the same time, if there are some focused questions, you feel free to reach out to Maria.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And then I just assume Dr. Sampath won't be joining us today.
No, if there's anything particular, we'll just reach out separately. Thank you.
Thanks, Jonathan. If that is the case, then why don't we get started? Again, thanks everyone for joining us this morning. So the purpose of today, we're going to be discussing the Richmond Hospital Ambulatory Design Session for the General Surgery Rapid Access Clinic, or GRAC. Yeah, and just as you guys know, we probably got that notification, this session will be recorded for note-taking purposes, and then we'll go over this again. So thanks, everybody. Before we begin and get into the meat and potatoes of this presentation, I just want to do a territorial land acknowledgement. So today we have the privilege of coming together on the unceded Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh territories. May we recognize this honor and approach our work with honesty, compassion, and understanding. If you are calling in from a different location though, feel free to share that with us right now or write it out in the chat. But if there's nothing, we can move on to the main part of our presentation. So we'll be talking over a few agenda items. We'll be going over a few housekeeping items as well as some introductions. Carmen's going to go over the purpose and guiding principles of CST design. The main bulk of this meeting will be discussing future end-to-end workflows and doing a Cerner in-system demonstration. Specifically, we'll be going over outpatient and inpatient referral processes, scheduling appointments, a day of appointment processes, including check-in registration, provider assessment and documentation, procedures and treatments if required, and that would be the Maria piece. And then at the very end, follow-up and departure processes. We're going to be going over some questions as well. I think we actually have a few questions from our registration team, Andy, who's on the line here as well. And at the very end, we're going to be going over next steps, moving over from here. We have scheduled in some time for a break, so if anybody needs to duck away for a few moments, we have accounted for that. Okay. And at any point in time, if you guys have any questions, feel free to pop that in the chat or just call that out. I'm happy to stop and chat. Yeah. So a few housekeeping items. When you are not speaking, please remember to mute yourself. For the purposes of note-taking, as well as follow-up items, please, for the first time, state your name when you're and your role when we're talking at first, and then for any non-urgent questions, you can feel free to pop them into the chat. And as I mentioned before, this session will be recorded on Zoom, unless there's any objections. Okay, just a quick round of introductions. I'm just going to quickly rattle this off here. But from our Richmond side, sadly, it sounds like Bal and Dr. Sampath can't join us, but we have Jonathan, our surgical project manager. Ari, this is the first time for us meeting, so thank you for joining. We have our program assistant and clerk. And then I guess Maria will potentially be joining us later when she's done with her consults there. Is there anybody from the Richmond side that I don't have here right now?
No, not from my perspective. Thank you.
Okay, great. Great. And then from our team, from the informatics CST project management side, we have just joining us right now, we have Nicole Wu, our clinical informatics manager. She's the manager for the critical care program, as well as the provider education piece. From the clinical informatics side, from the critical care team, we have Carmen and myself, Alan. From ambulatory, we have Kirti and Rachel. From the scheduling team, we have Himanshu, Mary and Josh. From registration, we have Andy. From RCQ, Aditutu. From med management, we have Tam. As a CSC resource, we have Elena. From the ORSET team, we have Agnes, Jenny, and Doris. And then from PET, we have Harmon. Is there anybody from our team that I'm missing right now? Okay.
Elena just put in the chat that she's from the provider adoption team.
Okay.
Thanks, Nicole.
Yeah. Elena, thanks for calling that out.
Thank you.
Okay. Also, just a quick question. Will the decks be shared after the meeting? Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah,
Wanted to
just
know
like
that.
last time, we'll send them out with the minutes.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right, from here, I'm going to pass this on to Carmen to go over the purpose.
Carmen, you may be on mute if you're speaking.
Thanks. Thanks, Nicole. So the purpose of this session is to confirm and review what we've designed based on what we gathered from our walkthrough of the clinic and requirements gathering session. We'll review the future state workflow and what we've mapped out and validate what works and identify any key gaps. We'll also review what currently exists in Cerner and validate what works again, and identify any changes that are required. We'll make any additional tweaks and changes based on feedback from today and have our validation session, which is our final session to validate the content, which is later in October. The workflow that will be the CST Cerner future state for this clinic. In addition to these sessions, we'll also have specific scheduling and order set sessions. Scheduling session will be for clinic scheduling, booking patients, etc. And we have a separate team that does this. And then order set specific session and provide if the provider does order entry that requires any new orders being made, new power plans and things like that. And we've already connected with the order sets team who are going to be helping with that to include Jonathan as well. This is just a reminder of our most important guiding principle, which is to prioritize the must-haves and not the nice-to-haves. It allows us to take the system live in a safe way where you have everything in the system you require to ensure patient safety for your workflow. We want to focus on that because if we let kind of everyone coming on board to design for everything, that is a nice-to-haves, our bills get overwhelmed with the multiple streams they have going on, and it's just not feasible to do all that work. So keep this in mind as we go through our session as you help a solution and build a system that fits your clinic. Is this a nice to have or is it a must have? We'll revisit the nice to haves post go live and we will optimize and try to figure out how to make this better. But first, let's focus on getting to the finish line with the must haves. Now we're going to talk about the end-to-end future state workflow. Sorry, is there any questions so far before we get into the big chunk of this portion? Okay, moving on. So this is a very broad overview of this clinic's workflows, and we'll go through each one, identifying the future state steps, as well as providing an in-system demo for the steps this clinic will perform. The first step is receiving the referral. So referrals can be received via two methods, external or internal. External referrals come in by fax to a program called Work Queue Monitor, and we'll show you what this looks like in a bit, where an encounter can be created and the fax can be indexed to the chart, meaning it will be attached to the chart. And then internal referrals are received in a program called Scheduling Appointment Book or SHAP Book, where the orders comes through as orders to schedule in a highly customizable request list. So this is the future state of how ED will place the referral to GRAC, and it's kind of more as an FYI, since this clinic won't see this part, it'll be done in a merge, but we'll be using this bubble with arrows format. And we just want to point out now that gray means out of system and not in Cerner, and blue means in system, done in Cerner. So first, the ED patient, of course, goes to the merge. They are diagnosed with an ACS issue out of system. In system, the ED provider will place an ED consult to general surgery order and ask the ED clerk to page service. I guess that part is out of system, but this order to consult them is also placed in. Out of system, the ACS consult on ED patient, it will be done in person or over the phone. And then in system, the ED provider will place diagnostic and lab test orders to be completed in ED. The ED provider will then place a referral to outpatient general surgery access. Surgery access clinic order. And then the patient will be discharged from ED with following their ED discharge workflow in future state. Any questions about this workflow? Not.
No, seems good.
I will move on. This is, sorry, this is the inpatient post-op route. So out of system, the patient is deemed ready for discharge from the inpatient unit. In system, along with all their discharge orders and documents, the ACS provider will place the follow-up clinic, general surgery, rapid access clinic order. And then patient will be discharged from that unit following the inpatient discharge workflow. We won't be doing a demo for this because both of those steps are done outside of GRAC. But we do have some questions. I just wanted to, again, confirm the fax number with you guys, 604-233-5654.
That's correct.
Thank you. And then, is this number shared with any other clinic? I understand, Ari, you cover both Class Clinic and GRAC, correct?
Yes, so the CAS clinic uses that fax number as well.
Okay, so then we just have a question for you as part of the design process. There will be two options to choose from. Option one is to keep the one fax number and all the referrals will go to the work queue monitor and you don't need to update the referral number. Option two, well, you will be given a new fax number in addition to your current fax number. So you will have your current fax number and all referrals are faxed to the clinic fax machine as they currently are. And then I guess, Ari, you will have to then manually fax these referrals into your work queue monitor. Does that make sense?
I like option one better.
Yeah. That just means it's just like, from my understanding, it's just like if you get a lot of like spam fax, the option
Actually
two might be
don't.
better. Okay, good.
Yeah, it's been great.
Okay, we will note that down. You want option one is preferred then.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay. This is kind of an FYI, but once the order is added in ED, like the in-system order for the referral, this decision support window will open with the clinic info. It's to ensure that provider is placing the correct referral order. So you can't just like have a VGH provider putting this in and, and not like this will tell them like this is what this order is for and where you're putting your referral into. So this will be, I believe, designed in the other design session. Same with this. This is again what the referral order will look like. It closely mimics the referral form that you guys currently have, but again, the contents will be decided in a future design session. Sorry, any questions about those before I move on? All right.
Sorry, I can't figure out the gesture thing. Can you go back a slide? How do I turn off this thing? Okay, sorry. Can I go back to the referral form slide?
Yep. This one?
Yeah.
This is a generic one I pulled off of Cerner. So the one for GRAC would actually say referral to outpatient general surgery rapid access.
Yeah. No worries there. Can you remind me what's visit modality?
Visit modality, we actually will, I will not show this actually. It will be like in person, virtual, like that type of, I believe that is what the what the contents of the drop-down box will be.
Okay, sounds good. And these are like standard templates, right? Like we won't be able to change the fields. Okay,
that is a good question, actually. If any of our builders on the line, is that something we can customize?
It's okay.
Or
we
can
follow
touch
it
base
up.
with them after.
Yeah, not important. Just not important. Thank you.
Okay. And yeah, our next will be scheduling. Our next step we'll be going through is scheduling appointments, which is actually the biggest chunk of this. So just
sorry, before you move forward, quick
course.
question. So you mentioned that there's an external internal referral, right? So then the internal would essentially be through CST, external will be through that.
That fax.
Is there Yeah, and there's always an option of adding a patient, right? Like
Yep.
with outside of those two referral streams.
I believe so, yes.
Okay.
Because I know you have that other workflow. I will double check, but it doesn't stop you from adding a patient, I believe, too.
Yeah, perfect. That's all I needed to know.
But
Thank you.
again, I will double check that first before I come back to you
Yeah,
with that.
perfect. Thank you, Karen.
This is just like kind of the enterprise workflow. And then, so just some information on scheduling. The scheduling request queue contains much of the information required to manage the list of patients requiring appointments, including the date received, ordering provider, order details. The majority of the information needed to schedule comes from the details that the ordering provider entered when placing the order. So in that order that I just showed you guys, it has all the information, so that will be used as a source of truth, as before we would have used the referral form. So interpreter required, urgency, reason for appointment would all be in that order. Multiple sources can be selected when attempting to schedule an appointment. There's like 3 ways you can book an appointment with Shapbook. So the application, it can suggest an appropriate time if required, but I'll kind of show you my my preferred way. But there are many ways to do things in the system, as you will see in the future. There's another step after scheduling an appointment, and it's to confirm the appointment. In the Cerner, so appointment must be confirmed in the system at the time of scheduling. So it's placed on the schedule and those resources are reserved. The resources being like the provider and the patient actually. Confirming appointment, another window pops up once you confirm, and a confirm appointment summary pops up, and the details of the appointment are all included. And it can be actually printed or saved and emailed to the patients. Again, we'll demo this part. So the future workflow for internal referrals and scheduling appointments will be in system. The GRAC clerk will locate referral in the request list inquiry using Shapbook, and we will show you this. Out of system, we'll call the patient to schedule appointment. Back in system, the clerk will create pre-register outpatient encounter, and then back in again in system, we'll schedule an appointment using Shapbook. I'm actually going to demo this first because there is a different one for internal and external. So let me just bring up my Shapbook. So again, I'll be the clerk for this demo. I have this application open. It's called Shapbook, or schedule appointment book. I've already found my bookshelf, and this is what it would look like. All my appointments will appear here. Actually, if you look, sorry, if you look the previous day, I have a few appointments there. This is just how this clinic was designed. I'm using the VGH Rapid Access Gynae clinic just because Richmond hasn't been built out yet. So just FYI. Yeah, you can see my slots for today are all empty. And I've already selected my bookshelf. So you would do, when you first open it up, it would be empty. You locate your books, you click on it, click OK, and it will show up here. You select the bookshelf that you want. In this case, I wanted VGH Rapid Access Gynecology. So I've clicked that, and the title of the book is here, and my resources appear here. Yes, do you have a question?
So yeah,
Yeah, of course.
sorry. So I think firstly, can you make it a little bit bigger? Just
Oh, sorry.
No, you're good.
Yeah.
Don't worry. And then can you go through the bookshelf piece? Because I think that might be pertinent to Ari in view of like her running 2 clinics.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you.
Yes, I know, totally. So the bookshelf would be empty. Like when I first opened this application, this would have been empty. Oh, sorry. To select the bookshelf, I actually would just go in here. For the purposes of this demo, I'm using VGH. So I'm literally just going through and I find my VGH Rapid Access bookshelf. I can open it further to see which books are in there, just to verify which ones I want or which ones I'm looking after. So I just click on the bigger bookshelf, click OK, and it brings up all the books within that, I guess, the bigger book.
Right. So just to
Yes.
clarify and correct me if I'm wrong, Carmen, for Aria, the bookshelf's essentially the two clinics. So within the clinic, you can put it on there. So to click in, quick and easy access for you to switch between
Yes.
schedules.
That's my understanding, is that will be part of the design session for how this will be built out.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, so your design session, just make sure you bring up the fact that you cover another clinic and you want the books for both clinic to be on one bookshelf. Otherwise, they'll design as two separate bookshelves.
Okay, thanks,
Thank you.
Nicole. So I'll open that again. I can click on whichever book, either the CAS clinic or the GRAC clinic. Click on that, open it, and it will open my appointments for the day. And you can go through and click on whichever day to see your appointments for that day. And that's this page at least. So back to the referrals. So how I'm going to look for my internal referrals is I have this toolbar up here. It is quite overwhelming, so don't worry. There will be separate training sessions for this. There is a request list inquiry button. I've already loaded this up, but you click on that and this window opens. I'll make this bigger as well. I've already pre-filled this, but it will open up basically like this. You choose the inquiry list. It will be request list, or for today's purposes, is request list by location. The request list queue is the ambulatory rapid access future requests. Again, for today, location type ambulatory, and the location for today is VGH rapid access gynae. I'm going to click find. And then all my referrals and follow-ups, orders that have been placed for patients will appear on this list. So this is the list that you'll be like monitoring to manage referrals, for internal referrals at least. Sorry. And then just note the different, I guess the different columns. A lot of the details are here as well. The appointment that's requested, the actual order, where it's placed, the order location, like all these might not make sense right now, but in real estate it would be like ED or like from the inpatient units at Richmond Hospital. The priority is also here to help facilitate with booking. The visit modality, kind of what Jonathan was asking earlier. There are other modalities that are options like email, phone, but mostly for this clinic, I believe it will be in person. The reason for visit, it will be pulled here as well, and the provider who ordered it. And those are all just details that can be seen. Before I do anything else, I have found my patient that I'll be using as a demo today. And just kind of an FYI, from this page, you can bring up the contact. So once again, on the toolbar of this request list inquiry page, I click the top left button here with the phone on it, and it brings up the contact information. I didn't fill this out for my patient, but the phone number is here. Whether interpreter is required is here as well. So you can always get that information here to call the patient and coordinate an appointment. So first we're going to right click the request. So we're going to modify this encounter. Sorry, my window popped up in the other screen. And this is some patient details. I want to check if there's an encounter that's attached to this patient, and I can see that there isn't. So I'm going to set an encounter. Sorry, I have many encounters for this patient just because this is my test patient. I added an encounter, and then this window pops up. And it's going to ask me to like select the encounter that I want. So it's always going to be a pre-register outpatient. I'm going to look for the organization, and every clinic, I believe, has their own location. But for today, again, I'm using Rapid Access Gynae. Sorry, again, my test patient has many things going on. So it brings me to this kind of this registration window that you will see a lot. I'm going to navigate over to encounter information. Again, bring up the pre-outpatient as my encounter type. The medical service right now defaults to gynecology because that is the clinic I'm booking into, but in the future will be general surgery for GRAC. I would have to enter vaginal bleed or the reason for this patient that is being referred to the clinic, and that was on the previous page where I saw the referral orders, which is our source of truth. For time and date, I'm going to put on my keyboard click T and N for now. And I believe that is all the information I need to fill out. Notice that all the yellow was like mandatory fields, and we have to fill that out before we complete this encounter creation. And if I forgot to fill something out, it actually would be like, stop, you didn't complete everything yet. Please go back. And it'll bring you to that mandatory field. So now I've verified that I've added this encounter. The information pops up here. And we're going to say, okay. And I have to fill out, I have to fill out more information. So for today's purposes, I'm just going to go through. These all, like the referral received date was today, it's pulled in from earlier. Priority, again, would be from the order. How early do they want this patient to be seen? It will be in person. Actually, here are the options. The visit modality. But for this clinic, it will be in person. And once I verify all this information, I click OK. And now I have my encounter attached to this patient. So now I'm going to book this patient since again, you'll find your flow of what order you want to do things. You can create the encounter first or call the patient first. It's up to you, because you could always split screen this or have dual screens, and you see your appointment book. You have your contact on the other side and all the information you need, and you can call them and coordinate the appointment and then book the appointment after. Again, you'll find your flow. I'm just kind of demoing what you can do right now. Yes.
Sorry, just to remind me, this is the internal referral.
Yes, still internal.
Okay.
External, yes, will be different.
So essentially the encounter has to be created before the patient can come in.
There will be, it's like a separate encounter before they come in, yes.
Okay. I'm just mindful of the turnaround time for the add-on cases, just because sometimes they do come earlier, very shortly after RE starts. But
Okay.
that's something that I can take away.
But
Thank
main
you.
and middle can register them because they
Okay.
check in there, right?
Yeah.
Right now,
So
current workflow.
okay, so main and middle can still create the encounter. The
Yeah, main and
referral.
middle can create the encounter, and then RA can back schedule them to the
Okay.
appointment.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. And it won't affect any of the provided documentation before Mario? No? Okay.
No.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks, Nicole. Back to this. So I'm going to book the appointment now. So I'm going to make the screen bigger just for now. I'm going to right click and complete this request. It brings me this page to verify everything. Click OK. I've already filled this out previously, so I'm just double checking that everything's correct. Click OK. Sorry. And it actually goes into my work in progress or WIP column here. So from here, there's actually 3 different ways to book. You can have it auto schedule, suggest the schedule, but if I'm coordinating with my patient and I know what day they want, I'm going to drag and drop. So I, again, pretend I'm just booking for today. I'm going to drag and drop into this slot. I can edit this from here as well. 9 o'clock is what I want. Maybe I want 60 minutes. Once that's good, I click OK. Notice my appointment is now booked with this patient. And it tells you it's a new patient, and it is yellow at the moment because we booked it, but we still have to confirm it. Confirming meaning are our resources free. So if you look over here, you'll see our resources are our doctor and our patient. So when the books are red, that means you're good to go, that both the resources are free at that time. If they were white, that means that there is a conflicting appointment with either the patient or the doctor, and you have to re-coordinate a different appointment. But in this case, we are good to go. So I'm going to go right here, confirm. This page pops up, and I believe this is the page that you can print out for the patients. But for now, I'm not going to do that. I'll click OK, and my appointment is turned blue, meaning it will be booked. Any questions about that? If not, I will move on. Oops. No. I'm just going to go into the external referral scheduling appointments as well. So the workflow for this will be in system, the GRAC clerk will receive a fax referral in work queue monitor. And again, I'll show you this. The clerk will then index the referral form in work queue monitor. The clerk will contact the patient to schedule appointment. In system, the clerk will create pre-outpatient encounter in Chatbook. And then once again in system, the clerk will schedule this appointment using Chatbook. So I'm going to demo this now. Is there any questions about this workflow though? Okay, I'm just going to bring up my work queue monitor. So this is another application that Ari will have to be familiar with. So notice that you have a bunch of tabs up here. Right now I'm in CST test queue, but RHS GRAC will have their own, I believe. I'm not sure, again, I believe you'll have to bring up that you cover 2 clinics. So I'm not sure how you want that to be built out.
Yeah. So if you have one fax number as you've chosen for option 1, both referrals for both clinics will go to that fax number if you choose to keep it that way. So that means as you go through this, you just have to like be sure which clinic it's for and index it appropriately. If you want them to have separate clinics, they need to be separate fax numbers. But separate queues, they need to be separate fax numbers.
What works better for you, Ari? Well,
Yeah.
you don't have to answer right now. Maybe
Yeah,
can we take it back?
Yeah, you can think about it.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah, I guess. But the same fax number still works for me because it's pretty obvious. And GRAC has significantly less referrals than the CAS clinic. So it's kind of easy to pick them out.
And you can work off the MRN too, right? To identify
Oh.
the GRAC ones, and then the rest will be CAS clinic.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think it's fine.
Okay, we'll sit on it and then we'll get back to you as soon as we can.
Yeah, sounds good.
Thank you.
And it sounds like most of your GRAC referrals are internal anyways.
Yeah.
So they probably won't even end up here. So you might be fine.
But we're going to show you regardless, just in case. And it might be helpful for the CAS clinic. Okay. So in work queue monitor, as you can see, there's many different forms. This is why I'm like, if you get spam, you'll get, some random forms as well into your work queue monitor. But here I have actually just uploaded 2 of ours. So I'm going to show you how to attach it to the patient from here. So if you get an external referral, we're going to go here, find the right tab. Again, verify that this is the GRAC referral form. I'm going to double click on this line. It'll bring me to this add modify window. I'll maximize this. So first you see it's all empty. So I'm going to fill this some information out. On the top of the toolbar of this page, I'm going to select the patient. This window pops up. I'm going to look for my patient. I know I have a lot of encounters, but in this case, I'm going to add an encounter. Because the only encounter in there, if this was, say, a new patient, it would be like ED or any other past encounters if they've been to, say, Paul's or VGH or something. So I want to attach it to, sorry. Just doing its thing, searching. And sorry, this is a B domain glitch, but I have to do this twice. Okay, so again, the registration window pops up. I go to encounter information. Notice that it forces me to do a referral encounter. So I will have to do a pre-outpatient encounter in my chat book. Medical service, again, will default to general surgery, reason for visit. Again, for this patient example. And then I have to go to referral info as well. I received the referral today, and the referral status is accepted. Normally in other clinics where the provider have to triage and accept the referral or refuse, like they have to assess the patient before they accept, is why there's so many options in this clinic. GRAC provider, or sorry, ACS providers already done that. So the referral status will be accepted. I'm going to complete this. Oh, I did not fill out a. Yes, again, it prompts me when I forget to fill out some information. And I have assigned an encounter. And notice on this blue banner bar, I now have my patient attached. Now I'm just going to fill out the rest of the information on my left side. So just making sure my referral, my document type is referral package. The next is I want to make it, need to update the status. So from available to complete. And that's from, oops, a quick screening of my referral form if it's complete. If not complete, I believe we can send, Nicole, please add on, but if it's not complete, we can request for more information.
Yeah, you just do your normal process how you would request more information, which is not like calling or email or whatever else you have.
Yep. Thank you. And the last part where the last part is on the bottom, where for performing provider, I put scan document. And really this is just to filter in the future when you're trying to look for this document. It's just a way to filter out this document so you can find it easily. And we'll actually show you where to find it in the power chart, like where provider can find this in power chart if they want to look for it. So I'm going to click OK. And it actually disappears from my work queue monitor. So I'm going to go back to chat book. So I'm back on the screen. So earlier we were in the books tab. I'm now going to actually go into the appointment tab. So for external workflows, I'll have to look for my patient. It doesn't just I can't just earlier I completed a request from another patient and pull my patient through. In this case, I just have to search for my patient. So I see that my patient's here, but I'm going to add that pre-outpatient encounter here. Window popped up awkwardly on my other screen. Okay, so I'm going to pre-register outpatient again. And I'm just going to quickly register this patient. But it would be pre-outpatient again. Gynae. Time now. And I believe that's it. So I'm going to complete. And I'm going to complete my appointment details underneath. So using the referral form as my source of truth, and I actually, I actually can show you now. If I launch, I can actually launch PowerChart from here. My own registration clerk. So every time you open up a patient chart, you'll have to, we call it establish a relationship. You just have to choose your relationship to the patient, and then it'll open. And I already had it open, so I believe this is, yep. So under documentation on the menu bar, we have a referral package. I have many because I've been testing. But when you open up from here, you can use this as your source of truth when you're booking the appointment. But for now, I'm just going to close that up and I'm going to fill out the rest of the information. So for appointment location, it will be RHS GRAC. But for now, I'm looking for VGH RA Gynae. Appointment type, this is a new patient. Reason for visit is bleed. Nope, I didn't skip too much. Okay, referring provider, I'm going to put test Alex. Received date is today. Priority will be from my referral form. Interpreter, also from my referral form. Visit modality will be in person. And then just wanted to point this out, but we confirmed last time that the providers would not want a reminder for appointments just because there's so many rotating. So if this clinic wants it turned off, then no matter what anyone puts, or no matter what the clerk puts into here, it will not trigger any reminder. Is that correct? Like no appointment is required. No appointment reminder is required.
What do you think, Ari?
Sorry, you're talking about the doctor? Like,
Yeah. So like if you fill this out,
mhm.
no matter what you put, if this clinic, like when we're designing it, they don't want any of appointment reminders. Sorry, I'm losing my voice.
Yeah,
Mm.
so
and no
we
matter
can,
what you put, they won't get it. So yeah, I think this was like something the providers would choose, but
yeah, because I think there's twofold to this problem. One is there's a rather quick turnaround, right? From
yeah,
booking
exactly.
or booking a case into an appointment, it might just be like 30 minutes. And the other piece is the provider for this clinic rotates weekly. So yeah, it's hard to really specify who follows which patient when it's a
Agreed.
rotation assignment. So we can turn that off.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you.
Right, Ari?
Thank you for clarifying.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Right, good, Ari? No?
Yeah,
So you don't
Okay,
have to fill
cool.
this out then.
All right, thanks. Thanks, Ari.
And then I'm going to continue on. And I believe that's it. So once I've filled out all the information, I can move my appointment over to the right side to the work in progress. So my appointment is now here. Again, I have the 3 methods I can use, but my personal preferred one is the drag and drop. And sure, maybe in this, I know this clinic only runs till 9:30, but this gynae clinic is built a little differently. So yeah, maybe this patient only needs 30 minutes. Let's say okay. Again, it turns yellow. So meaning I need to confirm it still. Looking at my resources, both resources are free. So I'm going to confirm. My confirm window pops up with all my appointment details. I can print this out. But I believe we don't, that this appointment is set over the phone. But if you want to email it, I believe that is another option. We're going to click OK to verify, and now my appointment's booked. And we'll show you how that looks for provider after this. I believe that is it. So any questions about scheduling? Because that is a very long workflow.
Yeah, just a comment. It does
Yeah.
seem like a long workflow just for one appointment. That is a lot of work.
I did
Not
book
gonna lie.
2 separate, but yes,
Yeah.
I know. And if there
There's
are
like
different
a bunch
ways,
of
yes.
fields.
And
There's
different
like so many fields.
applications.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure you guys are gonna train again, right? When the system comes out. There's no way I'm gonna remember that next year.
This is an intro. Like this is like this is like an intro to this.
You'll get
Okay.
you'll get formal training, and to be honest, most of the patients are already in the system in one way or another, and often have most of these fields already populated from previous encounters. And also, most of your stuff will be working off your internal list and not your external list. So there's a lot less steps.
Okay, sounds great.
Yeah, and as Nicole said, like a lot of these patients would have had their information registered at ED. So I think it'll bring it over. We'll figure out what that really looks like, but it just seems like it's more of an encounter special whatever. But when we get into it and it feels heavy, we can revisit kind of the steps and all that. Ari, don't worry. I got you.
Thank you.
And I believe for the when you guys actually go live, informatics will be there to support as well. And okay, just moving on. So I've already done the demo. I did not have any more questions, but does our scheduling team have any questions right now? If not, I'm going to move on and pass over to Alan as I lose my voice.
Thanks, Carmen. So we're just going to talk about a few of our day of visit workflows, specifically the check-in and registration piece, as well as the provider assessment piece. So for the day of visit check-in, again, the great part is out of system. So the patient would present to main admitting. And this is done outside of GRAC, of course. So the patient, within system, the clerk locates the patient appointment within the scheduled appointment book. The central registration clerk would update the patient status to checked in and complete registration. When they do that checked in status change, that's when their encounter is flipped from a pre-outpatient encounter to an outpatient encounter. At that point in time, as per our discussions before, the patient would wander over to the GIM consult waiting area. And then I guess at that point in time, the provider would pop their head out and see that they're there. So one of the questions we had for you guys today was that if for some reason the patient wandered past central registration and came directly to GRAC, Ari or would the provider, would they be sent right back to central registration to register, or would Ari, would you register them right then and there?
I would say I would send them back to main admitting.
Okay.
And the thing is, I'm not physically at the GRAC clinic. I'm in the CAS clinic. So like, I don't even think the patient could find me. They don't know where I am.
Oh, okay. No, thank you very much for clarifying that. I didn't have the pleasure of visiting the site myself, so I wasn't aware of that, but thank you for making that explicit for us.
Yeah, so I did want to call out that, like, I think ideally for the add-ons, right, the patients would be registered first with main admitting, so that piece is quite crucial. We have made it very clear that a patient, they have to present to main admitting, and I think there might be a little bit of gap here in case in the scenario you mentioned, if they do walk past main admitting, it just seems like there's no encounter for this clinic. But I think when we get into, you know, the really flow of things, we can kind of see if there's any workaround. But main admitting they'll have to walk by it anyway, so should be okay.
We kind of go through this later, but like if like the patient skips main admitting, goes straight to GRAC and sees the provider, there's a way for them to mark the patient as arrived, in which case they can send them back to main admitting to register after, from my understanding. Please correct me if I'm wrong, Nicole.
Sorry, multitasking. Can you repeat that?
So I think there's just a question of like if patient bypasses main admitting and goes straight to the appointment, the provider can just mark them as arrived and can send them back to main admitting to register after. Is that correct?
Yeah, they can. They can totally do that. Or they can tell them to go back to main admitting, register and come back, because I feel like sometimes patients forget and then they just leave. But yes, completely. There's nothing stopping them from completing their work.
Okay.
They don't need to be registered.
So
they just need an encounter to document them. So if they have no encounter, then they need to go back to main admitting. But otherwise, if they just have encounter created, which should have been to book the appointment, then they just need to go in for check-in.
yeah, so I think that's my point there, that like, because my understanding is right now there's an assumption that there's a pre-encounter created for this patient, right? Is that my assumption correct, Carmen?
Pre-outpatient encounter, usually with the referral.
Yeah, so here's the thing, for add-ons, they wouldn't have that created. It's created with main admitting. So if they bypass the whole step, there wouldn't even be a pre-encounter created.
Because they're not scheduled in?
Yeah, because the add-ons aren't scheduled in. They're only, so the referral comes through and RE will see it at 7, but the consult can start technically at 7. Right, so without the patient presenting to main admitting to create the encounter, you won't have that initial or that encounter at all.
Are these add-ons from ED?
Yeah, ED. They're ED referrals that could happen overnight, so we don't really catch it until the morning.
I mean, they can.
Yeah, we can always send them back to.
They can just document on the ED encounter. Documentation flows through encounters anyway, so they can do that, and then they can create the encounter and schedule them in just so for clinic tracking and whatnot.
Okay, sounds good.
On, and sorry, Alan, but I guess we're done with this question. So we're actually going to pass this over to Andy, who's part of our registration team, to ask a few questions.
Thanks, Carmen. Okay, thank you. So, hi everyone, just a quick introduction. I'm from the CSC registration team. I just have a very quick few amount of questions that I want to talk to pertaining to labels and just kind of printing from Cerner. So on this slide, I just want to just quickly show that some of the types of labels we have in Cerner that are available to print at any time by clinicians or registration staff or clerks. So for example, we have patient form labels, those could go on any forms. We have external use labels, referral demographics labels, and of course we have our face sheet as well, and armband labels, blood specimen labels, more labels that I couldn't fit all on this slide, but they do exist and they can be printed at any time. Maybe we can go to the next slide here. Thank you. So another way to print is during registration. So when the patient checks in and that encounter is flipped or a brand new encounter is created for that visit, we can have a pop-up show up that can kind of quickly allow the user to print any labels or documents that they need right at registration or check-in. So I guess the question I have today is, if current states, do you need any labels, or does main admitting affix a face sheet or any labels with the patient when they come into the GRAC clinic, or do they come, or do you guys not even use any labels or face sheet?
So we do need a face sheet, and we use outpatient account labels. Just so if they do go into surgery, then the OR will know exactly where the paperwork started from, which is like GRAC.
So on the outpatient account label, what kind of information is on that? I'm not familiar with that label in PCIS.
Oh, hang on. Let me just print one out really quickly. So.
Oh, sure. That'd be awesome.
Yeah. It has the doctor's name on it for sure. Hang on. Okay, so PHN, MRN, patient's name, date of birth, sex, age. There's an account number. Then it says service, like it would be GSU, and then ref, and then it's the doctor that's seeing the patient, and then the name of the clinic, and has like account end date on the label as well. I don't think that matters, but I think the clinic name, the provider name and account number. Yeah, those are the most important things on there. We don't use armbands because not everyone will get admitted for surgery.
Okay. So you do use a face sheet, and it sounds like you have this outpatient account label. I wonder if Carmen, maybe you can go back to this previous slide just to see if any of those labels we have here make sense or kind of match. So our external use label, it has the patient's name, demographic, some date of birth, age, PHN, their MRN, their encounter number or account number. It wouldn't have an admit dates because this is for outpatients, but it would have the provider as well.
The provider name should be sufficient.
Okay.
Yeah.
So as long as you kind of have that provider label or provider name, sorry, that works along with the patient, that some basic demographic information, their encounter number. Okay. So it sounds like you do need one of these external use labels to be printed at registration then?
Yes.
Okay. So it sounds like what I have is one face sheet and one of these external use labels.
I think they print out like 6 to 10 labels.
6 to 10 of the external use?
Yeah.
So I can set a default number for that pop-up window, when it comes up, I can set it to, for example, 6. Does that work as kind of a starting point? These numbers can always be adjusted later on during go live, for example, if you're finding that the quantity is not enough, or you need a different type of label. It's very easy for us to make those changes. So we could start off with 6, and if the quantity requires to be changed, we can kind of go about that later on. Does that work?
That works.
Okay, sounds good. So mark that down. Okay, awesome. Thank you very much. So I'll go on to the next slide then. Yes. So we also have another way to print, and this is strictly for clinicians. It's through the print labels conversation. So this is only for use by clinicians, and it allows them to easily print off any set labels that we decide or set for them for the patient directly from this conversation, or that kind of registration window that you see there. This is printed on an ad hoc basis, so any time that they needed to print anything, that default value or default labels would come up, and they could easily print just from the click of a button. So usually we default it to one external use label. We have some blood specimen labels and then a patient form label as well. I'm just wondering, for GRAC, are any of these labels, or clinicians even printing these labels at current states? And is there a need for these labels moving forwards? And then if so, what labels would they be?
You know what? They won't be using specimen labels. Maybe a patient form label. What's in that? Like, what kind of information's in there?
So if Carmen, if you could go back to, thank you. So patient form labels right there at the top.
Oh, okay. Yeah, they won't be using that. Maybe the outpatient account labels, if anything. But as of right now, I don't see any of the doctors printing their own labels. They just use the ones that come from admitting.
I see. Okay. So
Yeah.
if that's the case, we could have it set up so that if they ever decided to print from this conversation, we could have the external use label show up there. And it doesn't sound like, they use any other types of labels, from what you know, at least. No blood specimens.
Sorry, Andy, if we can double check with Dr. Sampath and another session, that'd be great. But I think for now, we can go with what Ari said.
Okay, that sounds good. So we'll do the external use label for now. So that'll match that outpatient label that you have. And then I'll wait to hear from John and from you guys if there's any other requirements for labels. And there's actually so the examples of labels are in this presentation, but if you wanted to see some other types of labels, I can forward you that information as well.
It might be best if for this particular question, if you can just kind of have examples and then just send it directly. You can send it directly to Dr. Sampath, and then you can CC me so I can follow up. But it might just be a quick and easy way to address this.
Yeah, sounds good. Okay, thank you, John. So I think that concludes my section then. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Andy.
So right now we have scheduled in 5 at the 10-minute break. Just a quick check-in to see how everybody's doing. We're just after 10 o'clock. Does anybody feel like they need to have a break, or should we continue on?
How much like what's left? Can I ask?
Sure, yeah. So we'll be going over some provider assessment documentation. We'll be going over Maria's piece about procedures and day of treatment stuff, and then the follow-up departure processes as well. And I think, and then just kind of next steps as well. So I think in the slide deck, we're about 34 out of like 56 slides right now. So that's kind of where we're at. Yeah.
Sounds good. Maybe Ari, do you want a 5-minute break? 5? Yeah. Okay, cool. All right, we'll just take a actually. Yeah, so maybe Ari can take a break, but it seems like the provider assessment and documentation, I can speak a bit to it. maybe while Ari takes a break, I can try to address some of these questions. If not, then we'll just wait for her return. How does that work?
That sounds good.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to accommodate. All right, thank you. All right, so I guess Carmen will just truck along here. So for the enterprise workflow, this is just kind of standard enterprise workflow for provider assessment documentation. So the provider would see a patient has arrived and they've been checked in via their personal or clinic schedule through ambulatory organizer, which I'll demonstrate a bit later. There's a CPOE internal lab or diagnostic order that are automatically routed to the scheduling clerk's queue to be booked. And then there would be some documentation using Fessor and easily customizable templates, and then the consultation note would be distributed via Accelerus to various downstream systems. So this is, again, just a quick overview of the workflow. So the provider could review their appointments via ambulatory organizer and power chart, which again, I'll demonstrate. And within system, the provider would open up the chart to review all the relevant patient information. Now, out of system, I guess my understanding is they would poke their head out, they would see that the patient's they're ready to come in. After checking at central registration. So they invite them into the consult room in room 1306A. At that point in time, they can update the patient's status to arrived on ambulatory organizer. And that's, I think, what we're referring to before. If that's still a functionality that we can still do, we can check them in as arrived if they have an encounter. And if they've not been checked in by central registration. Afterwards, out of system, the patient would be reviewed and assessed by the provider and determine next steps, whether or not this patient can be discharged or whether they require surgery immediately or another follow-up. Once that assessment visit is done, they would be able to document using a modal and dynamic documentation. And we can go into that a bit more, but I think using the dictation software and applications, there will be separate provider sessions detailing that in explicit detail. So outside the scope of this presentation. And from here, I'm going to quickly demonstrate the provider piece here. So I'm going to share my screen. Perfect. Can everybody see my screen here?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So this is the provider view. So I'm going to open up, when I open up the patient's, when I open up Power Chart for the first time, this is kind of where I land within the Power Chart. The Lands on Mesh Essential was essentially their inbox, but what I want to go to is ambulatory organizer, which we've been saying so much about today. And here, this is the information that we see, kind of like a scheduling book. So whenever I would schedule any appointments in for the day, this is what I would see from a provider's perspective. Here you can see the time that the appointments are booked, the duration, the patient name. Of course, when Carmen demonstrated, she put 2 appointments, and that's why I'm seeing that here right now. Any details of the appointment, and again, the status. So again, I think I alluded to this before, but the status of the patient that they've confirmed that they're coming for the appointment, I can click on this, and this is when they say the patient's arrived. So this ability to check in them as arrived, or to say that they're arrived, can be done even though the patient has not checked in at central registration, just for a quick visual.
Okay. Sorry, Alan, just to double check, is this the position of critical care physician?
So that's the test login account I'm using right now. Yeah. But I'm going to be but with the provider, my experience view that I'm going to be seeing, it will be what the general surgeon will be able to see. So that's very, yeah. But
okay, so surgeon can also see the ambulatory organizers then? Absolutely,
yes.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. No, thank you for calling that out. So when I am going to go into my patient's chart, I can just click on the patient's name. Similar to what Carmen said before, the system's asking me who I am, why I'm trying to access this patient's chart. So I have to establish a relationship. I'm going to tell the system that I am the consulting provider. I'm going to click OK. And from there, I'll be able to open up the patient's chart. So within my patient's chart, where I will land at first is a chart level tab called Provider View. So within Provider View, I have multiple tabs called end page tabs, and I can navigate to different parts of this page. But what I'm going to be using exclusively right now is the outpatient chart end page. Within this outpatient chart end page, you can see I have multiple components on the left-hand side here. From here, I can review patient information, demographic information specifically here within this top component. If I wanted to review any documentation, for example, if this patient has been to any other center sites in the past and has had like previous consults, I'd be able to refer to those notes here as well. And by clicking on the specific note, I can review kind of what's going on. If I wanted to review any specific labs, I can click on this lab component. Fortunately, this is the build domain, so there's nothing entered currently. Microbiology results I'd be able to review here. Something also helpful would be to be able to go into our history. So if there was any surgical history of note, that would be found here as well. So this is kind of our one-stop shop for finding a lot of patient information. And it's kind of nicely organized. And again, this is quite customizable. When I want to review some more details, I can actually go into a different chart level tab called Results Review. And from here, I can review diagnostic imaging, any recent vital signs, any provincial labs from any external sites would also be pulled here from Care Connect. Again, so, and then if I want to actually physically look at the scanned document, I think Carmen referred to this as well, but I would have to navigate to my documentation section. And here I can see my GRAC referral right here. Perfect. But navigating back to ambulatory organizer, I just want to point out that if the provider worked in multiple clinics, then they can actually specify which resource group they're using by clicking on this here as well and searching for. But in this case, as Carmen pointed out, right now what we're using is a previously built up VGH rapid access clinic for gynae. Okay. So again, the patient would be assessed by the provider. Once that piece is done, they've documented on, if they can document here in these M pages, but when they want to create their clinic note, we have these blue hyperlink texts at the bottom. Again, they would click on the general surgery clinic note here. They can change the title to whatever they saw fit. And then again, there would be a separate provider session to go into the details about using dictation software and applications for when they actually go ahead and dictate their note. Perfect. But I'm just going to come out of this, and that is just a quick overview of the provider piece. Does anybody have any questions?
No questions. I think the only thing is when you have a chance, or if you have a chance, it'll be great to demo it to Dr. Sampath in the same way you did. That's all. Thank you.
Absolutely. That's...
And then maybe Nicole and your team, can we touch base afterwards to talk about the engagement with Dr. Sampath? I just have a few notes.
Yeah, sounds
Thank
good.
you.
Thanks.
You guys can see my screen?
Yeah, you're good there, Tom.
Okay, it just looks a little strange on my end. All right, thank you, Alan. I'm just gonna go into talking about procedures and treatment. Then that's decided by provider if it's required. So specifically for Maria or the wound care nurse, this will be their future workflow. So out of system, the ACS provider reviews patient and decides wound care clinician is required. In system for documentation, provider will need to enter a wound care clinician consult order. They also either call them or ask the clerk to. I actually don't know what happens in current state. Like, does he usually ask Ari to call them, or does he do they call them themselves?
Right now, if I'm aware that Maria's needed, then I will make sure that she's aware of the appointment. They do have access to her phone number, so they can definitely call her at any time.
Yep.
Needed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And then, sorry, does she just run down and come to that same appointment, or do you ever book her as a separate appointment?
No, she comes down at that same appointment.
Okay, so she's never
Yeah.
booked separately, or she comes
No.
and sees just wound care. Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, the only caveat to that is if she's like in the consult at the time and we like there's not enough time left in GRAC, there might be an opportunity like to rebook her an appointment specifically. That hasn't happened yet, but it could be a possibility.
Okay.
So
Sorry,
do you want to build for that? Because then we have to build her as like a wound care resource to book into the clinic.
no, I don't think we should. It's okay.
Okay.
We also touched base with the generalist team who's helping design the workflow for wound care nurses. So we will let them know this. Yeah, they do have their build rules as well with how to build in wound care as resources. So what from their recommendation is that they don't build them in as a resource. So just wanted to let you guys know that.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah. So, yep, just part of the workflow, they will have to put in the order. It actually goes to their multi-patient task list, but because they could be seeing patients, they're not always checking their list, which I'll demo in a bit. But it's preferred for them to call them, especially if they want them in like now. So ACS provider or RA can call the wound care nurse. The wound care nurse will come in and see the patient GRAC, and then they will in-system document using DynDoc. Oops, I actually am going to do a demo. So I don't believe Maria's here, correct?
Yeah, Marie's not here, and
Okay.
next time I'll book a separate dedicated appointment, and hopefully she won't be in consult by then. But
Okay.
we can demo it. So
Yeah, I will demo it just because it's recorded. So if I can just send her the recording as well.
Yeah, no, go for it. Yeah, I'll let her know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Or again, the generalist team, I believe, is helping design this too. So I'm not sure if they do their own E&O and design sessions as well.
Okay.
But I will demo, and if she wants to separate demo, I'm happy to do that too.
Perfect. Thank you.
So this is the multi-patient task list. I did not populate with anything, but this is where it would be found. And I would just go to my multi-patient. So just to know, I am logged in as a wound ostomy nurse. And my multi-patient task list is actually up here on my toolbar. So when I click that, it goes here. I also have ambulatory organizer. So if it was built out as a resource, she would have her schedule here, but we are not. So I opened up my patient chart already. But when she is going to document, I mean, again, the same applies from provider to nurse. You can review the patient information if the wound care nurse needs, and they can review the referral form from the same page. It flows through all the encounters. They can review any documentation anyone else has done. They can review results review, which is also here, just located in a different place. And they can review the exact same things that the provider can through these tabs. The nurse view is a little different, and they will have other tabs at their disposal. But I'll leave that because it's not applicable for this clinic. They may have to, I'm not sure what they decided for like the final workflow yet, but they could potentially also document an iView or interactive view in INO. And this is basically where nurses go to document a lot of their documentation. And for nursing, it would be finding, sorry, I am not familiar with this, but adult system assessment. They can find their incision wound skincare pin sites. They can make their dynamic groups for whatever wound their wound or surgical wound that they are assessing, and they can document their assessment there. But from my understanding, they would primarily be using creating a free text. They actually also have their own M pages, having their own notes. So they could similarly just go to their M page that's built out, go through and review the patient information, and then create their note. From my understanding, they actually just use a consult. It's called the consult note. And also from my understanding, there is no auto text. They actually just prefer, at VGH at least, they prefer to free text. But if they want and they have a template they like to use, we can help them create an auto text that would fit their needs.
Okay, sounds good. Sorry, this was a question more for the provider doc that I missed.
Yep.
If they have a request for a template, does it sit with the pet team or does it sit with your team?
We can help create that auto text if
not just auto text, but like a new DynDoc.
a new DynDoc. I
Would you
actually
Pet team.
I might have to refer to Nicole.
Pet team? Okay.
Pet team.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. The only thing I wanted to add here is that they can save or sign. So I'm just gonna type in something. If I save this document, and meaning I'm saving it for later, I haven't finished yet, but I don't want to sign quite yet. So if I save it, I can save it. And I would have renamed it, but I have not in this case. And I can actually go out of here, come back. Oh, I mean, I guess I have to close it, sorry. And then my note is italicized, meaning I have not signed it yet, and only I can see this as the writer of this note. So I can open it again, and modify it. And once I'm actually done, I can sign and submit, and I can CC whoever I want, whoever provider I want, whichever provider I want. And then once it's signed, I can refresh, and it will not be italicized anymore, and it's final. And even at this stage, I can still modify it. I can go back and I can create an addendum. Yeah. And it will be visible as addendum. So that's why saving sometimes might be preferred to signing. Just wanted to demonstrate that functionality. That is it for that presentation. Any questions for the wound care nurse demo? Not, I will move on. Our last step is follow-up and patient departure. There is no demo for this part, but I will be speaking to the future workflows. So just a few notes. So follow-up orders can be created, including the criteria. In this clinic's case, usually within a week, next day, or within the month for follow-ups. Follow-ups, usually from my understanding under a month. And it will be automatically routed to scheduling clerk's queue to be booked. As I demonstrated earlier, it will be in your chat book. It will be in the list brought up on the request list inquiry window. Provider can then do a patient discharge summary if required. And if a patient came for a one-time appointment, the encounter is actually auto-discharged at midnight, as I think we discussed before. Basically our team tried to match these departure workflows with the future state.
Sorry,
or in future state. Yep.
Sorry to interrupt.
Yes.
Can you go back to the last point there? The patient came for a one-time appointment. The encounter is auto-discharge.
I'm talking about the outpatient encounter, I believe.
Okay. Yeah. So I guess the question for you here is if the patient registers, right, or gets checked into GRAC, he came for the appointment.
Yep.
And then has a surgery and has to stay overnight now. But that's technically an encounter switch, right? Because now he'll be an inpatient. Okay, cool.
Yep. And I'll talk about that actually.
Yeah, perfect. Sorry, I jumped ahead.
Yeah, no. Good question. So yeah, just moving along. For the emergent surgery route, out of system, the provider will determine patient requires immediate same-day surgery. The provider will then complete the emergency surgery slip. This I actually have in the slide, but you guys are aware of the surgery slip that they fill out and then bring to the OR desk. And correct me if I'm wrong, but is it triplicate? Is that correct? No, it's just a slip.
Yeah, it's just a one-page slip.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I know the slip you're talking about. So we actually touched base with our surgeon. Yeah, yes. Thank you. So we touched base with our surgical team who will be designing and helping the surgery, like basically surgery go live at RHS. And they said they'll be keeping this slip. Like, again, to be determined because we are all going through the same process right now. And we'll let you guys know if this changes. But for now, the decision is to keep the slip because that's what VGH is currently doing as well. We still kept our emergency surgery slips. And then from my understanding is because they actually like to visualize their OR slate that day using those slips.
Yeah, not a concern for your team, but I do want to call out that there are other types of emergency slips, just in case that slips. But I'll touch base with surgery. It's Benson, right?
The
Okay,
surgical CISs
that
I talked to is actually named, I can maybe include it, but surgical CISs were Sarah Kumar and Rochelle Zhang.
Okay, I'll work with Rochelle.
I can.
Yeah, no, Rochelle knows for sure. Yeah,
Rochelle knows? Okay.
Yeah, she's from Richmond. Yeah,
okay, got it. Yes, so moving on. In system, the OR clerk will create the referral pre-patient encounter. So that's that new encounter. So the outpatient encounter will expire, and then this new encounter will be the one that they will use for surgery. And actually also the encounter that the provider can place their power plans, which is like the new PPOs into. And they will put it in a planned state as required until it's needed. Out of system, the patient will be directed to surgical daycare. Moving on. The next one is community surgery. So out of system, the provider determines patient requires urgent surgery. again, out of system, they'll complete community booking package. Actually, half of it's kind of in, half of it's out, because some of the forms actually need to be printed out, like the regional OR booking form and the consent form will be printed from FormFast. I wanted to double check with you guys here. I remember like RE used to prep like the OR packages for the provider. Is that correct? So in future state, it's just, we'll be asking you to print off these forms off of FormFast, which I can actually show you if you want, to be completed by provider. And then out of system, the provider will call the OR clerk. OR clerk then creates that new encounter. And then in system, the provider will place any power plans that they need in the plan state. And then out of system, provider gives the handout, like that handout, like waiting at home for surgery. And the patient is discharged from the clinic to await for surgery. I mean, I can quickly show you. I don't believe I can bring it up in my build domain, but I know I'm nurse right now, but in in the clerk view, I would also have this FormFast on my toolbar, and you just click that and it actually brings up a list. And you can search the forms or favorite your forms actually, so you can have them all right away. And sorry, going back. Moving on. So for elective surgery, out of system, it's a lot of out of system actually. So provider determines patient is not does not need the same day or urgent surgery. So they will refer the patient to the office of the general surgeon on call, depending on the day of the week. Out of system, the provider will create and complete visit summary note as needed, and then the patient is then discharged from GRAC.
Okay, so just a small bit here, and it might be wrong, but there's a process where there's a referral to external clinics, right?
I would just so we actually talked about this. Please again add anything if you have anything to add, Nicole or Jonathan, but if whatever clinic like I actually don't know which clinic there is it a private clinic they're referring to?
It'll be a private surgeon clinic.
Yeah.
It rotates again, so it's not
it's not just one day.
Yeah, so I guess in that sense, like I don't think it's necessary, but I was just wondering, is there a process from which they have to clarify that they did refer out to a private clinic? Or they can just conclude that.
I'm not sure if this is the part, but would they just dictate that in their note and then do the referral process as how they normally would?
They can do that. They can certainly do that. I was just wondering if there's a more cemented CST step for them. That is ideal. We can clarify
for
that.
sure. For sure.
Hi, it's Elena from Provider Adoption. Can I just answer the question? So there is an order that you can put in. It's called referral to clinic not using CST. So that just kind of creates a trail in CST, so you can see that a referral was made. It will show and indicate that it was a paper referral, but that's an option for you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Elena. If we can add that into a step that we would ideally do, that'd be great. Just as a so it's more structured.
Yep, sounds good. I just out from what I know, it would probably be in this step in system. They would refer to whichever clinic they're referring to, depending on, I guess, the day of the week, out of system, but in system, they would place that order, and I can add that in.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. So thank you, Elena. And then this is the second last one. So an inpatient admission. So this is where the provider determines the patient requires inpatient admission. In system, they will discharge the patient from GRAC, and they would just be completing the visit summary note for the provider at least. Out of system, the provider will call staff support coordinator to acquire an inpatient bed. Out of system, again, the SSC will consult the appropriate personnel to arrange a temporary bed space for a patient while waiting for an available inpatient bed. And then in system, whichever unit they land on, they will do their admission process as per that unit.
Okay. Sorry, this might be more of a question for Elena, but for the admit to inpatient order, it would be placed within this clinic visit, right?
Correct.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Okay, and then the admit to inpatient order will just take care of a lot of the transitional pieces.
Yeah, it's just going to flip the encounter.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's just more obvious. I will say that admit to inpatient order can be a single order, but it also can be built into a power plan. So it's just easier for flow for the provider to place all at once. Another option to think about for your for this clinic.
Sorry, Elena, for this though, if they're working off a pre-outpatient encounter, they can't place that order on that pre-outpatient encounter. Isn't the workflow here that they're on that they're in the clinic and they want to admit them?
You can't? I was pretty sure you could.
I thought they need to be on a pre-inpatient encounter.
Oh, and we're talking about
Pre-outpatient.
outpatient. Yes.
Yeah,
So they need to get registered by central reg onto a pre-inpatient encounter, and the provider needs to switch that encounter, place the orders at any plant power and the pre-inpatient encounter. You can't place that pre-admit to inpatient on the pre-outpatient encounter.
Correct.
I don't think that was triggered.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, sounds good.
I just stepped away for a second, but that's right. You can't place that admit on that outpatient encounter. It has to be, if they're going to be admitted, it has to be, they have to start from the pre-inpatient, and then that gets flipped.
So they have to call central reg, ask them to create a pre-inpatient encounter. Once that's created, they can go ahead and go onto that encounter, place an admit to inpatient order. But generally, you want to make sure that the patient is like in an inpatient space, because you have to select the location that the patient needs to be in. So until they're in a bed, won't be. It'd be whoever is actually admitting the patient in the inpatient setting.
Yeah. Okay.
Place it.
Sounds good. Thank you.
As a team, we kind of talked about this, and it really depends, like the process is so different depending on where they went, that it would be dependent on the unit that they landed on. So ED would be different from PACU, or if they actually got a bed in an inpatient, and it would be like a direct admission.
It is,
where we would call central reg to register them.
Okay. And then for the outpatient encounter, that admit to inpatient order is just blocked off completely, right? Like it's disabled.
Yeah, the outpatient encounters never transition to an inpatient.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't be able to place that order.
Perfect. Yeah. I just want to make sure, because a lot of the surgeons here, they kind of do the dual role. So if they see the admit to inpatient in their other encounters, they might just try to order that for this outpatient encounter. But good to know that's just not available here. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Next is actually discharge. We're outside of Cerner. The provider will determine patient doesn't require surgery. Inside of system, the provider will create and complete the visit summary note. Provider then, again, the rest are optional, but if the follow-up appointment is needed, then they will place a follow-up order as required. And I'll show what that looks like. And then we kind of cycle back. Then the GRAC clerk will get that order. They will follow up and schedule and book an appointment.
Again, this might not be your domain, but I think from an inpatient, we would need it like refer to GRAC order. But I think that's just a very standard refer to outpatient clinic, right? Okay, cool.
I believe it's the same order.
Same order. Okay, yeah, that's fine. Okay,
correct me if I'm wrong, everyone.
What was the question?
I refer to this basically refer to outpatient GRAC order.
From inpatient.
Which we do.
From inpatient? Yeah, it's the same order, whether you're inpatient, outpatient, we're on the moon.
Okay, sounds good.
It's the referral order that I showed earlier. That looks kind of like this, but it says referral order. Yeah, this is a kind of, again, a sample of that. I took it off of another order, but this is kind of what it would have, and it would be the same information: scheduling priority, visit modality, interpreter, reason for visit, and the instructions they might have. And this would be, again, placed by provider when the patient is being discharged. Sorry, any questions about departure? Okay. Next is, we reviewed this before, but just reviewing again. So the regional OR booking form is in form fast, consents in form fast, which will need to be printed out if the provider wants to plan surgery for the patient, pre-admission information and PM office registration, history and progress notes will be DynDoc. Allergy documentation form, there's many ways to document this, but historically will have been done either through the inpatient route or an ED. But it will be in the allergies tab and a power form, part of the basic admission information. Power forms are, basically just a form in Power Chart. Orders are CPOE. GRAC referral form will be a referral order, and same with the follow-up. And again, this emergency booking slip, which I guess is not a triplicate, and for now, a surgery team has told us that this will remain on paper. That actually concludes our presentation. Does the GRAC team have any further questions for us?
Right, do you have any? Good. Yeah. A question on auto text. Auto text pulls in the component information too, right? Like we can build it so that it pulls in. Okay. Okay, sounds good. And I think in that case, then I think I would prefer building auto text rather than a console. I think it's easier. But yeah, we can touch base on the documentation piece later.
Okay.
Sorry, you're asking to build an auto text versus what? What was your
versus console note DynDoc?
Oh, like a full DynDoc template?
Yeah.
We probably won't build a DynDoc template, to be honest. We don't build that many of them. Like to get approval for a full template, it has to be usually utilized by a larger group instead of one little clinic.
Okay.
So your option is an auto text.
Okay,
Sorry.
sounds good. No, I
Makes
think
it
I prefer
easier.
that too. Yeah,
Okay.
because they're gonna want yeah, it's fine. I'll deal with it. Okay.
We can help build it. You don't have to do it, but I know.
Yeah,
you
no,
said you
as in
would.
as in I'll deal with the expectation because I suspect they're gonna want some built-in console notes, but that would be good if we can show them like the auto
We
text
have
function.
consult notes like built out, like cardiology consult note template.
Yeah.
Built out, but we can build out auto text and we can design smart templates. They want specific pieces of information to pull into the auto
Okay.
text.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's all I had.
Okay.
And I think Ari is good too. So do you have any questions for us?
I think you mentioned planning a separate session for Dr. Sampath.
Yeah.
Did you just want to discuss with our team about that?
Yes, please.
Okay. Did you want to talk about another session, or would you like to decide once we end this meeting?
We can end this, or we can kind of wrap up.
Why don't
here,
why don't we wrap up this session, Carmen, and then Jonathan can just stay on and we can stay on and have a
Sounds
conversation.
good.
Perfect.
So just finish up your slides.
Yep, sounds good.
All right, you can go if you want. Let's go for a break.
So just going to go over our next steps. Order sets design session is TBD. I did forward any information I had from our order sets team to John. And they said they are setting up the session still. These two are still pending because I see activity under those CECs basically. They're still deciding the date. So for now, scheduling design session is August 10th, but there's still discussion there. So again, to be decided. Validation session, also tentative date. Yep.
This is Himanshu from the scheduling team.
Yes.
So it would be the scheduling requirements gathering session.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, and the tentative date is August 10th.
Okay.
August 10th. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're
Thank you
welcome.
thank you for clarifying that. And then the validation session for us is October 4th. But again, there's activity under there and our teams are still working to plan that date.
Okay, sounds good. We'll make time for it.
And thank you. Thank you, everyone. So yeah, we'll stay on the line. But if everyone wants to hop off, that's fine. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Carmen, I'd just like to join that session
Of
for
course.
whenever it's booked. Just
Yes.
put it in my calendar. Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks, Elena. Okay. I'm gonna find a more private space. I'll rejoin the meeting in like a minute or two.
Sure.
Thank you.